W5FC. Ham Fixin's Net, first and third Monday, 7 p.m., W5FC. W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin tonight? Skynet. I'll take that as a no. This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. My name is Tom, and I'll be your net control station for this session of the ARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with nighttime, daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic. We encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations in priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time using the pro sign break, followed by your call sign. Are there any emergency or priority or any priority traffic at this time? This is a direct net, therefore please do not transmit without direction from net control. Net me this evening. Stations are reminded to ID at the end of the view of transmission. The net operates on this frequency with a field tone of 110.9. Check-in seal Echolink are also possible using W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Just go to the club website, which is whiskey5friedchicken.org right now for a complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is 90 minutes long and structured in the following parts. Number 1, general announcements. 2, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, where and when you can look through a telescope. 3, National Space Society. Discussion topic of the evening is number 4. What is up is number 5. Number 6 is space exploration, space history. Number 7, Constellations of the week. We have 2 this week. Number 8, space launches of the week. Number 9, recent astronomical discoveries. Number 10, visible satellite patches over the next couple of days. Number 11, astronomical Q&A. And number 12, the 73 round. Depending on time, will determine how many of these topics we get to. All licensed hams are licensed to transmit on this frequency. You're invited to check in. Let's go ahead and get started with low-power short-time check-ins. If you are one of those, please come now with your call sign, your name, your location, your low-power short-time.
This is Kilo India 5, Uniform Alpha Uniform, low power, David and Mesquite.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas, short time.
Kilo 5, Mike Charlie Delta, Cody in Dallas, low power.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot India, WB4MFI, Ted Dallas, low power.
Okay, I got KI5UAU, David in Mesquite, low power, KG5APL, Patrick in Dallas, short time, K5MCD, Cody, Dallas, low power, and WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power. To any additional low power short time stations, low power short time stations, please come out. All right, any of the 4 stations currently checked in, if you have anything you'd like to bring to the net now before you disappear into the ether, please give out your call sign now. Okay, it's now time to go to general check-in, so please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. General check-in.
This is November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay of the Street.
This is Alpha Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert Richardson.
We're going to play hard to get this evening. I've got N50F, Clay and Mesquite, and AA5AH, Robert in Richardson. Surely there's more people out there, and I won't even call you Shirley.
This is KI5CYA. I'm just listening to scanning, and I see there's a net going on. Is this a traffic net or a welcome net? Over.
Well, it is a welcome net. It's actually a themed net. This is Astronomy in Space. It's on for about 90 minutes. In fact, you have hit the night of net. This repeater is active except for 1 hour, which was just this past hour between 8 and 9. The rest of the time, we got something going on until midnight. Welcome. Can I ask your name and where you're from?
My name is Mark. I'm in Saxe, Texas. I'm actually over here at the edge of Dallas, heading on home. I'll be like to participate and listen in for a short time. Over.
Well, very good, Mark. I've got you checked in, and you're welcome to hang with us as long as you'd like to. This net is weekly, so you can also pick it up on Echolink, and then also on, we do a YouTube stream. Just look for DARC, that's Dallas Amateur Radio Club, and Skynet. Yeah, we had to call it something really cool. So DARC Skynet, you'll find us there also. So welcome, Mark. I'm going to go ahead and continue with check-ins. But listen as long as you want, and if you got any questions, by all means, ask us.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill Farmers Branch.
This is Kilo India 5, Zulu Juliet Zulu, Greg in Colleyville.
Whiskey 5, Bacon Lettuce Tomato, W5 BLT Bill, Garland.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
All right, let me go ahead and get the folks I've got, and then we'll continue. I got KI5CYA, Mark over in Saxe. Welcome, Mark. KF5JHA, Chaz. I believe in Mesquite. Chaz, you are real weak. I hope your signal gets better for your segment. KF5ZBL, that's Bill. Mr. Bill to everyone else in Farmers Branch. KF5ZJZ, Greg, welcome. That's a new call for me over in Colleyville. W5BLT, Bill, one of our regulars in Garland. KG5, Whiskey Victor Lima, that's James in Carrollton. WB5OZL, Brendan DeSoto. Yeah, she's kind of like completely off the air right now while we see about getting her antenna up and her computer running. Okay, that's the last I got. There may have been a couple of other stations I couldn't quite hear, but I will continue with check-ins. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you are transmitting from. This is Skynet. Okay, there is a station Arlington, I'm getting a carrier from you. The repeater is picking you up, but absolutely no audio. Could you check your mic or audio and try one more time, please? All right, still no audio. You are holding the repeater, so there's something wrong on transmit side. We'll come back to you in a little bit. Anyone else want to check in? Please come down.
Kilo India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf Cruise in Arlington.
I did pick up KI5KWG, cruise in Arlington, and the mystery station, still no audio. All right, I'm going to go over to Echolink. I cannot get Echolink to come up. For some reason, the wireless here at home is acting up. So I'm just going to have to play it by ear, literally. If you're on Echolink, please come with your call sign completely and phonetically and completely and slowly so I can hear you. I can't even cheat and see your call sign in ahead of time. So I will take Echolink. Please come to your call, your name, and your location. I will give you extra time. Echolink only.
Is Kilo 5, Kilo, Tango X-Ray, Kelly in Point, and I believe I'm the only other person other than Chaz that's on Echolink right now.
All right, very good. I've got K5KTX Kelly over in Point. Yeah, that's very unusual. I'm not sure what's going on in the network here at home. It could use a nice little reboot, apparently, but I can't do that in the middle of this net right now, so we'll just have to deal with it. But I appreciate that, and since you two are now both checked in, I will take that as Echolink is done. I'll go ahead and open it up one more time for anyone who'd like to join us in any mode. Please come out with your call sign phonetically, your name and location. All right, I did pick up over on the YouTube, one of our regulars said still up K5KOB. I think he's in Crandall. And I see, Brenda, I got you. And there was another station. You were light into the repeater. I could hear audio, but the noise was actually greater than your audio. If you want to try again, potentially increase power, improve position, or just scream into your microphone. I might be able to pick you up. I'm turning my audio to 11 so I can hear you. Try one more time. I think I heard Kilo 8. Can anyone give me a relay on that? I could not make him out. Please come to your call. All right, braking station, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a little bit of time. We'll come back for additional check-ins. We've got plenty of them on this net. You might want to check your output, see if you increase power a little bit. I'll give you time to do that. Don't worry, I have additional check-ins coming. All right, let's see here. Let's go ahead and get started. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be of ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Please come to your call now.
Kilo Golf 5, Hotel Foxtrot Lima.
All right, very good. KG5HFL, I'm going to go ahead and check you in. If you don't mind, could I get your name and location, and then go ahead with your announcement.
I'm sorry, I don't have an announcement. My name is David, and I'm from Nederland, Texas. I am just south of Beaumont, Texas. Apparently, we've got an opening tonight, so I heard you on the repeater on doing your net, and I figured I would check in. No announcement.
Great, David. Thank you for doing that. We do appreciate it, and when we get out there occasionally to new places, absolutely. Glad you're there, and did you say Newly, Texas? Is that right? Did I get that right?
It's Nederland, Texas. Nederland, Texas, near Beaumont.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. Okay, I wrote down it correctly as Nederland, Texas. That may be why I'm having some trouble with a couple of the other stations coming in. Some sort of skip, or we're just doing really well for unknown reasons. Magic. After all, amateur radio is magic. Ask anything. Okay, I'll ask again if anybody's got any general announcements they'd like to bring. It's the week before field day. Anybody got anything? Please come with your call. Okay, hearing none. Well, it's quiet this evening. It's okay. And I wonder where Tony is. He's usually the guy with all the announcements, but not tonight. He must be out and about and doing things tonight. So I'll go through the usuals. Tonight let's see, we have AMSAT, the Amateur Radio Amateur Satellite Group. That's available here in Dallas. There's 2 local nets, but there is one national net. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. in the F-Link installed and registered. You can find the name net under Groups and AMSAT. Also an live audio link is available on their website, which is amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. It's everything to do with amateur satellite status and what's going on, as well as, of course, everything having to do with space. Much like us, but with a massive plan. The Dallas AMSAT net is here in Dallas-Fort Worth every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. on this repeater, at 8 p.m. And also on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, which is 147.140 megahertz, PL 110.9. Positive offset on both of those nets. Tom N5HYT is NYT. Boy, oh boy, let's slow down. Tom N5HYT. Are welcome to check in and ask questions about amateur radio satellites. We also have, of course, the Dallas Amateur Radio Net. We probably have one of the most active repeaters in the country when it comes to nets. Boy, do we have them. On Mondays, we have every Monday at 7 p.m. a different net each week of the month. First week is Ham Fiction's Net. We talk about food because we know not only do hams like to eat, they like to cook. So bring your recipes and other fun stuff. 7 p.m. Second Monday is MCOM 101, Non-Denominational Emergency Communication. Get to talk to people who are a part of emergency communications in the area here. You don't have to be a member of any group. In fact, that's how we encourage you to become a member of the group, is to listen in and be a part of that net. Find out about emergency communications and amateur radio. Third week is the second week of helping of ham fixin', Mondays, of course. Fourth week, or fourth Monday, is GeekNet. Expand conversation beyond just amateur radio, although that's always central to everything we do. But GeekNet has all sorts of things, including computers, trivia, puzzle questions, things like that. The Brainiacs. And if there's a fifth week, or a fifth Monday, we have a surprise net. We told you what it is. It wouldn't be a surprise. On-air participation is always encouraged, and every once in a while we have a prize. Okay, I told you about Tuesdays. Fridays is Cert City Simulation at 8 p.m. Learn about emergency radio communications. Be a Cert trained amateur radio operators. Melissa, KI-508 is next control. She usually has a few people helping her along the way too. This is an opportunity for you to visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday night. Cert City, all are welcome. On Saturdays, of course, is the night of net, which I mentioned earlier, with TechNet from 7 to 8 o'clock. We have Skynet from 9 until 10:30, which is what you're listening to right now. And then at 10:30 we have the Afterglow Movie Net, which I'm going to tell you about in just a minute. First and third Sundays is Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air. Information net, we call it MODA, where you can find out all things having to do with the club that maintains this site. Hope to tell you about Field Day, but I'll see what I can do about that here in a little bit. Daily on this repeater at 6:30 p.m. Monday through Sunday is the ARRL National Traffic System Training Net. Every night at 6:30. You don't have to be a member of the training net, essentially because there's a training net. Learn how to handle formalized traffic as well as be involved in a formalized net. It's actually quite interesting and actually can be a lot of fun. Okay, information tonight. Move this over here. For tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. Now, as you know, I pride myself on providing extremely accurate information on tonight's movies. So here we go. Ben Crandall was your typical teenage boy. Well, one you would want working for DARPA, Disney, or Apple Computer. He frequently dreamt of circuit drawings with electronic components, typically stocked by Unit 16, the company which put out the Heathkit Interocitor a few years earlier. Before anyone knew it, Ben had designed, and with the help of his teenage friend, built an anti-gravity spaceship for traveling the galaxy. His only drawback? No driver's license. So join us tonight at 10:30 p.m. for Explorers from 1985. And if I have to say it, the musical score by Jerry Goldsmith, as you know, I'm a big fan of music scores and Jerry Goldsmith. This is probably tops the list of my favorites. So I was humming along while watching Explorers today. And don't forget, our annual Field Day watch parties next week. We'll be viewing the Edward Spectacular, The Bride of the Monster from 1955. You'll believe you could bring people back to life using a commercial-grade spaghetti strainer. We start at 10:30 p.m. at the Field Day site. Of course, there won't be a net that evening, but never fear, we'll be discussing the movie on Saturday, July 1st at the normal 10:30 start time on this repeater. Bring popcorn and maybe a couple of tomatoes. This has got to be better than Battlefield Earth from last year, maybe. Now you can keep up with all the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org. In fact, information on the Field Day for DARC is there. Let me see if I can pull that up and read something here that does help. Yes, I found it. Hold on. This year, the DARC will host an in-person event at the Johnson Outpost YMCA in Farmers Branch. The festivities and event officially start at 1 p.m. Central Time, June 24th, but the W5FC DARC crew in true fashion will be there early at 9 a.m. Saturday, June 24th for setup. The DARC will be operating a 3 Alpha Station 3A next section, of course, NTX for North Texas will have 3 radios on the air during the event. Come join in the fun. Additional event and details are on the website. You can go there and it will give you a complete agenda as well as info on the potluck dinner we'll be having, when all this will happen. There'll be some drawings as well, an opportunity to get a $100 gift card, $50 gift card, 25, all from Ham Radio Outlet. Drawings will take place on at the July 2023 meeting, so I think you have to go there. Let me see. I'm reading this one cold. I don't know what the parts of this are. Probably mentioned in the meeting, but I was sleeping. We'll also be raffling off the DARC. We'll also be raffling off a Yaesu FTM 500, the newest and latest mobile rig on the market. You can buy tickets for that as well at Field Day. So there you have it. There is a volunteer and potluck sign-up. On the website is the very first article at w5fc.org. Does anyone need any fills? This is kind of your call now. All right, hearing none, let's go ahead and go to the next section, which is Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, where and when you can look through telescopes. I'm going to defer that section to Chaz, KF5JHA. Chaz, what do you have for us on TAS and what's going on there from KE5ICX?
I'm going to test my audio, and if this doesn't work too well, I'll go over to Echolink.
No, you're 1,000% better. Go ahead. You're fully audible. Completely different from what we had earlier. Sounds great. Please go ahead.
Sounds great. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held on Friday, June the 23rd. The meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas, and will also be held on Zoom. The original featured speaker had to cancel, so our pinch hitter is the TAS president, Lent LaCour, and his topic is going to be a trip to the fourth dimension and beyond. I wonder if Buzz Lightyear is involved. The Saturday night public observing sessions have begun again. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights so that there could be an opportunity for live reports from the TAS public observing sessions. Now, the third Saturday, which would be tonight, the stargazing would be held at Cedar Hill. I have not heard whether it's canceled or not, but if there's somebody that's a ham radio operator at Cedar Hill, please come down with your call sign so you can make a report. Yeah, I didn't check and see if it had been canceled due to clouds, but it probably has because it's cloudy here in Mesquite. Okay, you can check the TAS website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. And this is KF5JHA, back to our net control. It is yours, Tom. I'll be monitoring Echolink if you'd like.
Thank you, Chaz, and thank you for the announcement. So, yeah, I may lean on you since I am just driving blind today. I don't know what's going on with the wireless connection here at home. They did this during thunderstorm last week, and I have not rebooted since the thunderstorm we had the day before yesterday. So I think that has something to do with it. I'm not sure. It's very rare that I have network problems here at home, but I certainly have them tonight. All right, very good. This is KE5ICX Net Control for tonight's Skynet. Now, the next section is National Space Society events and activities. That would normally be Bill. I do not have him checked in yet. I did not hear anything about him not being available this evening, but it is possible. So I will ask, N5BB, Bill, are you on frequency, and would you like to give information on the National Space Society? I guess not, but let me go ahead and read a little bit here that is available. It says the National Space Society of North Texas has an active Facebook page. Just type in National Space Society of North Texas into the search box and request access to receive meeting reminders and club activities. They're also named, the local North Texas group was named the Chapter of the Year. And this is, I guess, the second or third year in a row. So it's an active group. They have some really interesting speakers on Sundays once a month. It's well worth visiting. They had a couple of astronauts that have shown up as well, which is pretty nice. So by all means, we as amateur radio operators, and of course anybody on this net is a fan of space, and they do a really excellent job of bringing people in with interesting discussion topics. So check into the National Space Society of North Texas. It is ntx.nss.org. Does anyone need any fills? Okie dokie, no problem there. So, since I'm net control this evening, I get to pick the topic. I also got to write the topic or pilfer the material, which I have done for tonight's topic, which is I've entitled Goodbye to the Ariane 5, which is the heavy lift vehicle from the European Space Agency. So I'll tell you a little bit about it, what's going on, and I pulled some of this information from Wikipedia on Ariane 5 and then some from a couple of articles that are out there. So the work is not my own. Please forgive me. I just didn't have the time to put a whole thing together, but I think this will be interesting to you anyway. The Ariane 5 was supposed to fly for the final time on Friday, June 16th. That would have been yesterday, and we'll have to wait a bit longer for the Ariane 5 rocket and swan song. It is a veteran of the European heavy lifter and was scheduled to launch for the final time on Friday from Europe's spaceport in Kourou, French Guiana, but that plan just changed. It has come to light that there's a risk to the redundancy of critical function on the Ariane 5. Consistent with safety requirements, Ariane Space has decided to postpone the rollout of BA-261 launch vehicle. Analyses are underway to determine a new launch date. Ariane Space, the French-based company that operates the Ariane 5, said via Twitter today that BA-261, said via Twitter today, period. BA-261 is the name of Ariane Space gave to this mission. The launcher and its satellites, the Heinrich Hertz satellite and Syracuse 4B, are in the final assembly building in stable and safe conditions. The company added in another tweet. In a short briefing this afternoon, that would have been yesterday, Ariane Space representatives said the concerns centered on 3 pyrotechnical transmission lines that are associated with the Ariane 5 solid rocket boosters. Engineers will examine the issue before Ariane Space announces a new targeted date. Milestone is expected in late June. So this one was a real hard stop yesterday. I didn't get a chance to see it. As you may know, and as I've always encouraged, don't forget, all of these launches are available streaming. Usually NASA TV has them, sometimes from the websites themselves, such as ESA, or the many, many SpaceX launches are available at SpaceX.com. So let's see here. It says, as one of the tweets cited above noted, 2 satellites are flying on the final Ariane 5 mission. The Heinrich Hertz satellite is a German spacecraft designed to research and test new communications technologies and scenarios. Ariane Space wrote in the mission description. Syracuse is also a communications satellite. One will be operated by the French military. The spacecraft will enable the French armed forces to remain permanently connected during deployment, Ariane Space wrote. Syracuse 4B will be protected against the most extreme jamming methods, the company added. Built to defend French sovereignty, the satellite will also be able to support operations led by NATO and the EU. Ariane Space operates the Ariane 5 for the European Space Agency, or ESA. The heavy lift rocket debuted in 1996 and now more than 100 launches under its belt, including some very notable missions. And they include the Rosetta and Philae missions. For example, the Ariane 5 launched ESA's Rosetta Comet Chasing mission in 2004 and the company's JUICE Jupiter probe this past April, and NASA's James Webb Space Telescope in December of 2021. Ariane 5's successor isn't quite ready to take the baton. The Ariane 6 heavy lifter, which has been in development for a decade, isn't expected to fly until late 2023 at the earliest. Now you're wondering, what the heck is the Ariane 5? Some of us know and a lot of us don't. So, by the way, you can follow along on the video portion of this event on YouTube, the Skynet, and you'll find some of the diagrams and things that are up. It's hard to describe this sort of thing on radio, so we do this other thing. Plus, we have an audience that shows up over on Ecolink, not Ecolink, well, we do on Ecolink too, but over on YouTube stream. Here's what I've got. There's the Ariane 5 ES. The Ariane 5 is a European heavy lift space launch vehicle developed and operated by Ariane Space for the European Space Agency. It is launched from the Central Spatial Guyanese, or CSG, in French Guyana. It is used to deliver payloads to geostationary transfer orbit, or GTO, or low Earth orbit, LEO. The launch vehicle has a streak of 82. Since 2014, Ariane 6, a direct successor system, is in development. The system was designed as an expendable launch system by the Center of National Études Spatiales, CNES, the French government space agency, in cooperation with various European partners. Despite not being a direct derivative of all the predecessor launch vehicle programs, it is classified as part of the Ariane rocket family. The Ariane Group is a prime contractor for the manufacturing vehicles, leading to a multi-country consortium of other European contractors. Ariane 5 was originally intended to launch the Hermes spacecraft, and thus it is rated for human space launches. Now, if you may have remembered, the Hermes spacecraft was a winged vehicle that was supposed to be like the shuttle, much smaller, but could still carry, I believe, 7 astronauts, but it was canceled due to expenses. Since its first launch, Ariane 5 has been refined in successive versions. There's the G, G+, GS, ECA, and most recently the ES. The system has commonly used dual launch capability, where up to 2 large geostationary belt communication satellites can be mounted using a SYLDA, and it is something that I could pronounce, but it's in French. So it means Ariane Double Launch System, Carrier System. Up to 3 somewhat smaller main satellites are possible, depending on the size, using the Speltra, which is an Ariane triple launch external carrier structure. Up to 8 secondary payloads, usually small instrument packages or mini satellites, can be carried with an ASAP or an Ariane structure for auxiliary payload platform. Following the launch on August 15th of 2020, Ariane Space signed the contracts for at least 8 Ariane 5 launches before it is succeeded by the new 6th launcher, according to Daniel Neuenschwander, Director of Space Transportation at ESA. The original version is dubbed the Ariane 5G for generic, and had a launch mass of around 1,625,000 pounds. Payload capacity to geostationary transfer orbit is 15,200 pounds for a single satellite, 13,400 for dual. It flew 17 times with 1 failure and 2 partial failures. That would be the G+. The Ariane 5G Plus has an improved EPS second stage with a GTO capacity of 15,700 pounds for a single payload, 13,900 for 2. 3 times in 2004 with no failures. At the time of failure for the first Ariane 5 ECA flight in 2002, all Ariane 5 launchers in production were ECA versions. Some of the ECA cores were modified to use original Vulcan engine and tank volumes while the failure was investigated. These vehicles were designated Ariane 5 GS. GS used improved EAP boosters of the ECA variant and improved EPS of the G+ variant. but increased mass of the modified ECA booster compared to the G core resulted in a slightly reduced payload capacity. The 5GS could carry a payload of 14,600, dual payload of 12,800. I think we said that. The Ariane 5GS flew 6 missions from 2005 to 2009 with no failures. The Ariane 5 ECA, or the Evolution Cryotechnique Type A, first successfully flown in 2005, uses an improved Vulcan 2 first-stage rocket with a longer, more efficient nozzle and with more efficient flow cycle and denser propellant ratio. The new ratio required length modifications to the first-stage tank. The EPS second stage was replaced by ESCA and is powered by an HM7B engine burning 14,900 kilograms, 38,800 pounds of cryogenic propellant. ESA-A uses liquid oxygen tank and lower structures from the Ariane 4's H-10 third stage, mated to the new liquid hydrogen tank. Additionally, the EAP booster casings were lengthened to new welds and to carry more propellant. The Ariane 5 ECA started with a GPO launch capacity of 12,100 pounds for dual payload. The Ariane 5 ES, or Evolution Storable, has an estimated LEO launch capability of 46,000 pounds. It includes all the performance improvements of the 5 ECA core and booster, but it replaces the ESCA second stage with a restartable EPS used on the Ariane 5 GS, used to launch the Automated Transfer Vehicle, or ATV, into a 160-mile circular low orbit inclined by 51 degrees. It's been used 3 times to launch 4 Galileo navigation satellites at a time directly into their orbital operational orbit. The Ariane 5 ES flew 8 times from 2008 to 2018 with no failures. And then finally, the ME, or 5ME, Midlife Evolution, I guess that's different from the midlife crisis, was under development until the end of 2014. The last ESE Ministerial Council of December of 2014 cut further funding for the 5ME in favor of developing the Ariane 6. The last activities for the Ariane 5E were completed at the end of 2015. Activities on developing the Vinci upper stage were transferred to the Ariane 6. All right, some nerdy statistics. We have the ECA that we were talking about is about 156 to 174 feet in length. Although the Ariane Space and the European Space Agency list different heights to their website, this rocket is designed for geostationary orbit. The ES is up to 64 feet in height, 164 feet. This rocket is designed for low Earth orbit, medium Earth orbit, and 2 stages. Fuel, the Ariane 5 ECA uses liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. The Ariane 5 ES uses monoethylhydrazine and dinitrogen, tetrazine, liquid hydrogen, and liquid oxygen. That's interesting. I didn't know they use completely different. Well, it makes sense to expect. So capacity, the ECA is 11 tons to GTO and 22 tons to LEO. The Ariane 5 ES has 7,500 pounds to LEO. Now I have also a picture of the quite dramatic explosion of the Ariane 5's first launch of the G-type on June 4th, 1996, and failed because of a programming error. Range safety officers elected to destroy the rocket during the launch, according to the Ariane 5 Flight 501 failure report. Next is the Ariane 5G. It flew on October 30th, 1997. It underperformed during its launch when it which was the second of the program. While it launched satellites into space, the satellites arrived in a lower orbit than planned, according to Economist magazine. let's see. The first flight of the Ariane, Ariane 5 ES on March 9, 2008 met with more success as it launched the first automatic transfer vehicle that sent cargo to the International Space Station. The first ATV was called Jules Verne. The Ariane 5 ES also successfully hefted 4 other ATVs, which were called Johannes Kepler, Eduardo Amati, Albert Einstein, and Georges Lemaitre. The program concluded in 2014. Another Ariane 5T rocket had trouble bringing its satellites to orbit on July 12, 2001. Because the upper stage underperformed, according to CNN, both the Artemis and CSAT payloads were put in the wrong orbit. The Artemis mission recovered when the operators used some of its onboard fuel to raise to the correct orbit. The CSAT could not be recovered. The first Ariane 5 ECA flight was December 11, 2002, and ran into some trouble. Boy, they found all the bad ones, I guess. Ran into some trouble when the Vulcan 2 main cryogenic engine failed, according to the European Space Agency. On June 25, 2018, an Ariane 5 ECA rocket managed to get its satellites into space after flying off course during a launch, according to Space Flight 101. SES-14 and A1-YA-3 Alia-3 maybe. Satellites, however, were within striking distances of their operational orbits. Both satellites were reported in good health, and shortly after the launch, the operators plan to proceed with their mission. So these were notable, it really should say from this article, notable failures. So what do I know? They just do things kind of weird sometimes. All right, that's it on my presentation. Does anyone have any questions or would like to check in? Please come with your call now.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth, just checking in.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth.
This is Alpha Golf 9er Sierra Golf, Antonio in Dallas, check-in.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Echo India Uniform, David, St. Paul, Texas.
Kilo Golf 5 Uniform Officer Whiskey, Alex.
Okay, good. We got a few more check-ins. Let me go ahead and guess who I got. I'm going to need one fill. KB9SOK, Sean in Fort Worth, I have you checked in. NV5F, Virginia, also in Fort Worth, I have you checked in. AG9SG, Antonio, over in Dallas, I have you checked in. David, KG5EIU, David in St. Paul. And I got the next one, I'm not sure. Kilo Golf 5, Uniform Foxtrot Whiskey. Is that remotely correct? Can I get your name and location?
Kilo Golf 5 Uniform Oscar Whiskey, Alex in Duncanville.
Okay, Kilo Golf 5 Uniform Oscar Whiskey. I think you said Pat over in Duncanville. Is it Pat, sir?
Alex, Alpha Lima Echo X-Ray.
Ah, Holly. Okay, I've got you. I've got you in. Thank you for joining us. Another new person this evening. Okay, let's see. I'll go ahead and ask if Chaz, is there anyone on Echolink I should be aware of? KF5JHA, KE5ICX.
I see a couple people, I'm not sure if they've checked in. KG5ZMG, that would be Joe, and KG5APL, that's Patrick.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and put him on the payroll, KG5ZMG and KG5APL Patrick. I think Patrick's probably, well, he wasn't on there earlier, so I'm gonna check him in anyway. So that's number 24 and 25. Okay, next up was up, and that would be Chaz again, KF5JHA. So Chaz, you are next, sir, from KE5ICS.
Why, thank you. You can put a star next to Joe's name. He says he's in Arlington. He thanks us for checking him in. This is Jazz KF5JHA. We call this segment of Skynet Was Up because it's all about what's going on astronomically over the next couple of weeks. Slide master, that would be Tom. He changes the slide over on Echo, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 405,385 kilometers. On June the 26th, the moon is at first quarter phase. Full moon is on July the 3rd. And on Independence Day, July the 4th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 360,149 kilometers. Slide master, slide number 3. Now, tonight is actually the peak of the June Lyrid meteor shower with a few meteors per hour. Now, most of the time, well, with the clouds, you might not see much. Most of the time, you'll see most meteors the hour just before dawn. Now, to get the detailed information about how to observe meteors and meteor showers, you can visit the International Meteor Organization at imo.net or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. Slide master, slide number 4. On June the 21st, we'll turn our attention to the evening sky, where the moon and Venus will be in conjunction in the northwestern sky. Now, Mars is close by to the moon and Venus. And slide master, slide number 5. The June Boötes meteor shower is on the night of June 26th, 27th. The meteor shower can vary between a few meteors up to well over 100 meters per hour. Now, again, to get detailed information about that, go to imo.net or amsmeteors.org. This is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 6, please. Once again, the next task club meeting is going to be held on June 23rd at 7:30 p.m. at the University of Texas at Dallas, and also held on Zoom. Our task president, Lent LaCour, will be the topic will be the featured speaker, and his topic is going to be a trip to the fourth dimension and beyond. Saturday night public observing sessions have begun, and tonight would have been at Cedar Hill, but it was canceled due to clouds. Once again, check their website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. Slide master, slide number 7. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill? Or maybe you have some information that you'd like to have answered on general astronomy. Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. All right, slide master, slide number 8. So as the moon waned over the last couple of weeks, so do these words for the segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for a world that's the only one where humans live right now. And until next time, actually I'll be doing another Skynet segment in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JHA, back to our net control. It's Tom's turn now.
Well, very good. Thank you, Chaz. Don't go running off too far because we'll be back in no time. All right, next up is, we've already done our check-in, so we'll get my slide set up here for the next group. We next have, that would be Kelly tonight for space exploration and space history. She has presentation responsibilities tonight, so I'm going to turn it over to her. Kelly, K5ATX, what do you have for us this evening from KE5ICS?
Good evening, everyone. This is K5KTX. Using data collected by NASA's Cassini mission, an international team of scientists has discovered phosphorus, an essential chemical element for life, locked inside salt-rich ice grains ejected into space from Enceladus. The small moon is known to possess a subsurface ocean, and water from that ocean erupts through cracks in Enceladus's icy crust as geysers at its south pole, creating a plume. The plume then feeds Saturn's E ring, a faint ring outside of the brighter main rings, with icy particles. During its mission at the gas giant from 2004 to 2017, Cassini flew through the plume, E ring, and the E ring numerous times. Scientists found that Enceladus's ice grains contain a rich array of minerals and organic compounds, including the ingredients for amino acids associated with life as we know it. Phosphorus, the least abundant of the essential elements necessary for biological processes, hadn't been detected until now. The element is a building block for DNA, which forms chromosomes and carries genetic information, and is present in the bones of mammals, cell membranes, and ocean-dwelling plankton. Phosphorus is also a fundamental part of energy-carrying molecules present in all life on Earth. Life wouldn't be possible without it. It's the first time this essential element has been discovered in an ocean beyond Earth. Previous analysis of Enceladus's ice grains revealed concentrations of sodium, potassium, chlorine, and carbonate-containing compounds, and computer modeling suggested the subsurface ocean is of moderate alkalinity, all factors that favor habitable conditions. This latest study, the authors accessed the data through NASA's Planetary Data System, a long-term archive of digital data products returned from the agency's planetary missions. The archive is actively managed by planetary scientists to help ensure its usefulness and usability by the worldwide planetary science community. The authors focus on data collected by Cassini's Cosmic Dust Analyzer instrument when it sampled icy particles from Enceladus in Saturn's E-ring. Many more ice particles were analyzed when Cassini flew through the E-ring than when it went through just the plume. So the scientists were able to examine a much larger number of compositional signals there. By doing this, they discovered high concentrations of sodium phosphate, molecules of chemically bound sodium, oxygen, hydrogen, and phosphorus inside some of those grains. Authors in Europe and Japan then carried out laboratory experiments to show that Enceladus's ocean has phosphorus bound inside different water-soluble forms of phosphate in concentrations of at least 100 times that of our planet's oceans. Further geochemical modeling by the team demonstrated that an abundance of phosphate may also be possible in other icy ocean worlds in the outer solar system, particularly those that form from primordial ice containing carbon dioxide and where liquid water has easy access to rocks. High phosphate concentrations are a result of interactions between carbonate-rich liquid water and rocky minerals on Enceladus's ocean floor and may also occur on a number of other ocean worlds. This key ingredient could be abundant enough to potentially support life in Enceladus's ocean. This is a stunning discovery for astrobiology. Although the science team is excited that Enceladus has the building blocks for life, they stress that life has not been found on the moon or anywhere else in the solar system beyond Earth. Cassini's mission came to an end in 2017 with the spacecraft burning up in Saturn's atmosphere, but the trove of data it collected will continue to be a rich resource for decades to come. When it was launched, Cassini's mission was to explore Saturn, its rings, and moons. The flagship mission's array of instruments ended up making discoveries that continue to impact far more than planetary science. Now moving on to space history for this past week, starting with June 11th. Back in 1957, the U.S. Air Force launched the first Atlas rocket from Cape Canaveral, Florida. The Atlas, a path-breaking design in many ways, was being developed as an intermediate-range ballistic missile. On this first test flight, the missile lost thrust approximately 24 seconds into flight due to a failure in the booster fuel system and began to loop around itself. Less than a minute after the initial launch, the missile was detonated by the range safety officer at an altitude of 5,000 feet. Despite the missile's failure, this launch provided valuable information regarding the airframe and propulsion system. After a challenging development program and numerous modifications, the Atlas was ready for military use. A later version of the Atlas was used to launch John Glenn in Friendship 7 and all subsequent Mercury flights into orbit. The launch of prototype Atlas, although a failure, was an important step in the American journey toward human spaceflight. Also on June the 11th, back in 2008, the Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope launched as the Gamma Ray Large Area Space Telescope, or GLASS. The telescope was renamed that August in honor of Enrico Fermi, a pioneer in high-energy physics. Fermi observes the cosmos using the highest energy form of light, gamma rays. Mapping the entire sky every 3 hours, Fermi provides an important window into the most extreme phenomena of the universe, from gamma ray bursts and black hole jets to pulsars, supernova remnants, and the origin of cosmic rays. June the 13th, back in 1963, NASA signed the contract with the David Clark Company for the development and manufacture of the Gemini space $829,594.80. Over the next few years, the David Clark Company worked with NASA to develop several modified designs for use on Gemini, G1C, G2C, and G3C. You may be most familiar with the G4C suit, developed in 1965. It was worn by astronaut Ed White during his Gemini 4 EVA, the first U.S. spacewalk. The NASA-David Clark relationship did not end with Project Gemini. The David Clark Company went on to develop the Apollo communications carrier, the Shuttle Launch Entry Suit, and the Shuttle Advanced Crew Escape Suit. On June the 16th, back in 1963, Soviet cosmonaut Valentina Tereshkova became the first woman in space. After launching on Vostok 6, her spacecraft came within 3 miles of Vostok 5, launched June the 14th. She radioed Valery Baskovsky, the cosmonaut aboard Vostok 5, and ground using the call sign Chaika, which means seagull in Russian. She circled the Earth 48 times before landing on June the 19th. Also, a few astronauts who had birthdays this past week, starting with June 11, 1944, James Van Hopton, who was part of Space Shuttle mission STS-41C and STS-51I. On June the 13th, 1945, Ronald Grabe, who was on Space Shuttle missions STS-51J, STS-30, 42, and 57. And finally, June the 16th, 1940, Taylor Wang, who was on Space Shuttle mission STS-51B. And that's all I've got this evening. This is K5KTX. Back to you, Tom.
And thank you, Kelly, for that report. And this is KE5ICX. And control tonight, Skynet. I'll take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us, please come now with your call sign, phonetically your name, where you're transmitting from. Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move back to Chaz. Chaz, run back to the radio. It's time for Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, and that is presented by Chaz, KF5JHA. Chaz, your call sign got shortened for some reason on the script, but at any rate, you're next from KE5ICX.
Yeah, it's been smooshed on the script for a while. It's okay. I know what my call sign is. This is KF5JHA. Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 80 total constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. In her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week this week is actually a two-for Borealis, the shepherd, and Corona Borealis, the northern crown. Borealis represents a shepherd or herdsman. Most people think it looks like a kite or an ice cream cone. You know, a two-scoop double dip cone from either Deer, Queen, or Brum sounds pretty good right about now, doesn't it? Slide master, slide number 10. There is one very bright star in Borealis, Arcturus, which is the fourth brightest star in the sky. You can find Arcturus by using the handle of the Big Dipper. Follow the curve or the arc of the handle and you run into Arcturus. Other interesting stars on Borealis are Izar, Mu Borealis, Kappa Borealis, and Chi Borealis. I'll concentrate on deep sky objects, though, over the next few slides. Slide master, slide number 11. The first object is NGC 5466. It is a 9.2 arc seconds in size, has a brightness of 9.1 magnitude. It's a globular star cluster, and it's small and faint. It requires a large aperture telescope to resolve properly. It looks like a fuzzball on an 8 or a 10-inch scope. It's a challenge to find in binoculars. Now, the challenge for this week is to try to observe NGC 5466 with binoculars. I would suggest a pair of 20 by 80 binoculars in very dark skies. Slide master, slide number 12, please. The next object is NGC 5248, which is a barred spiral galaxy, magnitude 10.3. Smaller telescopes under 8 inches can see it, but only a weak glow and little no structure is visible at that time. Stephen James O'Meara was able to spy this 10th magnitude galaxy with his 7 by 35 binoculars from Hawaii at an elevation of 4,200 feet. But it took much time and effort to do so, and he has eagle eyes. Most other people couldn't do this. It's easy to see some structure in the galaxy at a 10-inch telescope or larger, especially at the Texas Star Party. In his entry for this galaxy in his book, The Caldwell Object, Stephen James O'Meara writes that Barbara Wilson saw a beautiful structure with arms revealing many small knots in her 20-inch telescope. And again, that was probably at the Texas Star Party. Slide master, slide number 13. The final object that I'll cover in Borealis is NGC 5676, a spiral galaxy that requires a much larger telescope to resolve. It is a very challenging object to locate. It looks like a faint fuzzy thing, maybe a small patch of light in an 8-inch telescope in very dark skies. You can begin to see some detail in a 12-inch or larger telescope. You might be able to notice NGC 5660, a separate spiral galaxy nearby, looking very similar, dim and fuzzy. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Now, I forgot to do something. I forgot to insert jokes, so I'm going to do these on an audible. Tom, there's no slide for this, so hold on to slide 13 for a little bit. I'm going to do some jokes. Next constellation is Corona Borealis, so we've got to do some jokes about crowns, because Corona Borealis is the northern crown. So I went to the dentist, and they said I needed a crown. So I thought, recognition at last. That was a good fill in the blank, wasn't it? Why was the detective excited when he found a thimble-sized crown? he realized he was looking for a fingerprint. Okay, that was funny, I thought. What do you call the queen of cows? Instead of corned beef, it would be crowned beef. A tornado tore through Miss Oklahoma's vegetable patch. Probably was this week, wasn't it? The day after she was crowned Miss America. She actually got world peas. Okay, maybe that wasn't that funny. What did the court jester call the balding crown prince? The heir apparent with no hair apparent. Have to be careful how you pronounce all those. And the final one for this evening's jokes. All lives begin... fill in the blank. With a crowning achievement. If you don't understand that one, go ask a mother that gave birth. This is KF5JH8. Slide Master, slide number 14, please. Corona Borealis is also known as the Northern Crown. It could be considered a scoop of ice cream that has fallen off the ice cream cone of Borealis. But as a crown, Gamma, or Alphaca, is the brightest star in Corona Borealis. It is the gem star in the crown. Alphaca is years away. A smaller yellow star orbits around the white primary and partially eclipses it, causing a slight reduction in Alphaca's brightness, about 1/10 of a magnitude, so not much. Sigma Corona Borealis and Zeta Corona Borealis are very similar double stars that each have a brighter member and a dimmer secondary member. Oh, there's a couple of other stars that I want to talk about that are variable stars. Our Corona Borealis, it hosts two known variable stars. Both are examples of particular classes of variables. Our Corona Borealis is a prototype of a rare group of variable stars which shines at a magnitude throughout most of their cycle at about 6 magnitude. However, at irregular intervals, it quickly dims to somewhere between 7th and 15th magnitude, usually hovering around 12.5, with its brightness fluctuating erratically during a minimum. Wow. The other one, the other famous variable star is T Corona Borealis. It's called the Blaze Star. It is also a recurring nova. Normally it shines at about 10th magnitude, but when it has erupted in the past, it reached naked eye visibility. 2 eruptions have been recorded, one in 1866, where it reached 2nd magnitude star, easily to see inside sometimes the city, and again 1946, where it reached magnitude 3.2. Both cases, the star's brightness fell off quickly after the initial outburst, falling below naked eye visibility in about 7 or 8 days. And this is KF5JHA. Slide Masters, slide number 15, please. NGC 5958 is a face-on spiral galaxy in Corona Borealis that shines at a dim magnitude of 12.9. It can be observed with a 16-inch telescope. Yeah, I have one of those. But just too faint to be seen in an 8-inch telescope. Slide Master, slide number 16. NGC 6085 and 6086. These two galaxies can both fit in the same eyepiece field of view at very low to medium powers. 6085 is a face-on spiral galaxy it's shining at a dim 14.3 magnitude, and 6086 is a magnitude 12.8 elliptical galaxy. Neither of these can be seen in an 8-inch scope. I'm going to have to try those in my 16-inch telescope. I don't think I've observed them. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, the last 2 slides for me. Slide number 17. There's a lot more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellations of Borealis, the Shepherd, and Corona Borealis, the Northern Crown. I've given you a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 75 different observing programs, and 2 more looks like they're going to be added. And most of those observing programs have about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate at a pin from the Astronomical League in about a year. And Slide Master, slide number 18, that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. Boötes, the Shepherd, and Corona Borealis, the Northern Crown. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I've used, borrowed, and stolen for every Skynet. And at times I use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now next time I'm not sure what I'm going to cover because I forgot to introduce the And this is KF5JJ. Backdoor net control 73, everyone. It's all yours, Tom.
Okie dokie. Thank you, Chaz. Thanks for that presentation. You scared me when I didn't see any jokes of the week, and then you did correct yourself. So I was wondering about that. Maybe something went wrong. But it did not. You did cover them all. This is KE5ICX. Let's see. We're getting down towards the end of the net. So let me pick and choose what we're going to do since I got all the presentations moving forward after this. So let's go ahead with space launches. We have covered to death the Ariane 5 Syracuse 4B Heinrich Hertz launch to be determined. I'm going to skip that. Next up will be the next scheduled flight will be June 18th. That'll be tomorrow. SLC-40 Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Falcon 9 rocket will launch the Satria communication satellite for the Indonesian government and Indonesian satellite operator PSN. The Satria satellite will provide broadband internet communications capability for schools, hospitals, and other public use facilities in Indonesia's rural areas. The satellite was built by Thales Alenia Space and is based on the Spacebus Neo platform. Falcon 9 first stage will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. On June 21st, we have a launch from SLC-37D at Cape Canaveral, but Delta IV Heavy will be a classified satellite launch for the U.S. National Reconnaissance Office. The largest of the Delta IV family, the Heavy version features 3 common booster cores mounted together to form a triple-body rocket. This is the penultimate flight of the Delta IV rocket. We have a Falcon 9 launch in June to be determined, Starlink 5-12 from SLC-40. Another batch of the 1.5 internet satellites will launch. First stage booster of the Falcon 9 will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. Then we have another to be determined in June. This will be SDA Trig 0B. This will be from SLC-4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The 18 Trig 0 demonstration satellites for the U.S. Military Space Development Agency will launch in the second of 2 Falcon 9 launches to carry the SDA demonstration spacecraft for future constellation of military missile tracking and data relay satellites. The Falcon 9's first stage booster will return to landing zone 4 at Vandenberg. On July 1st, we have a Falcon 9 launch from Cape Canaveral. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch a Euclid mission for the European Space Agency. It is an astrophysics mission with a telescope and 2 scientific instruments designed to explore the evolution of the dark universe first. It's made up of 3D map of the universe by observing billions of galaxies out of the 10 billion light years across more than a third of the sky. Euclid will be launched into an observing orbit at the Sun-Earth L2 Lagrange point. The mission was originally supposed to launch on a Soyuz rocket. The Falcon 9's first stage booster will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. On July 7th, Falcon Heavy will launch USS F-52 mission for the U.S. Space Force. Falcon Heavy will launch an unspecified military payload on this mission. Then we have a Falcon 9 launch Galaxy 37. This will be SLC-40 from Cape Canaveral. The Galaxy 37 C-band television broadcasting satellite for Intelsat was built by Maxter. The Falcon 9 first stage booster will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. Here's kind of a common theme going here. Next up to be determined will be a launch, doesn't say when, of the Peregrine SLC-41 Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. The Alliance Vulcan Centaur rocket will launch on its inaugural flight with the Peregrine commercial lunar lander for Astrobotic. The Peregrine robotic lander will carry multiple instruments, experiments, scientific instruments, and tech demo payloads for NASA and other customers. The mission will also launch 2 prototype satellites for Amazon's Kepler broadband constellations. The Vulcan Centaur rocket will fly in the VC-2S configuration with 2 GEM 63XL solid rocket boosters, a second-length payload fairing, and 2 RL-10 rockets on the Centaur upper stage. And finally, 2 more Falcon 9 launches. One is to be determined, the SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. It will be the 3rd pair of O3B M-power broadband internet satellites that will launch into medium Earth orbit for SES of Luxembourg. Then, finally, Falcon 9 launch, also to be determined. This will be Worldview Legion 1 and 2. This will fly from SLC-4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. First pair of the Worldview technologies plans to deploy 6 commercial Worldview Legion high-resolution remote sensing satellites into a mix of sun-synchronous and mid-inclination orbits on 3 SpaceX Falcon 9 rockets. First stage of the Falcon 9 will return to landing zone 4 at Vandenberg Space Force Base for landing. And that's it on that. Now the next sequence, actually all of these sequences, are mine. Let's see, we did keep building Box of Life on instead of this, so pretty much that was covered in the previous section. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and close out with visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the International Space Station. There are a number of good ones coming up for them. And if you want to look over my shoulder, I'll go ahead and put that up on screen. Let's see, June 21st, we have a minus 3.0 magnitude flyby of the International Space Station at 5:36 a.m. It'll reach its highest point at 5:39 at 45 degrees, and it'll fall to the east-northeast at 5:43:08. Then on June 23rd, we have a couple of passes. The better one is minus 3.2 magnitude. This one sounds almost like a repeat, a little lower in the sky, 5:36 a.m. out of the west-southwest. Reaches highest point at 47 degrees at 5:39, and it'll fall to 5:42 to the northeast. June 24th also has a good pass. This one starts at 4:49 a.m. at 43 degrees out of the southwest. Reaches highest point almost directly overhead at 4:50. And it's southeast, and it'll fall to the northeast at 4:53. And then finally, let's see, I think we got those. So 24th. Next up is the Tiangong Space Station. That's the Chinese space station. Currently, there are 3 tachinauts on board. It has several pretty decent passes. We've got June 18th, minus 0.4 magnitude at 21:16. Out of the west to reach its highest point at 35 degrees at 21:19, and will fall to the northeast at 21:22. Then we have June 25th, looks like a good one, minus 2.0 magnitude, that's at 22:29. Out of the west to northwest, it reached its highest point at 22:32 at 65 degrees, and will fall into shadow at 22:32:31 at 64 degrees. And then finally, what I'm going to mention tonight will be the Hubble Space Telescope. This one has a good pass on June 18th, 1.5 magnitude, 5:44 a.m. out of the west-southwest. Reached its highest point at 36 degrees at 5:48, and it falls to the east-southeast at 5:52. June 20th has passed. That one's a 1.3 magnitude at 5:16 a.m. Out of the west-southwest. It will reach its highest point at 5:19 at 41 degrees, and will fall to the east-southeast at 5:23. Let's see, I'm going to give you June 22nd, 1.1 magnitude, 4:48 in the morning. at 34 degrees, reaching its highest point 43 at 450, and it will fall to the east-southeast at 453. And then finally, I think I'm just going to call it quits at June 23rd. I'm starting to lose my voice here. June 23rd, 1.0 magnitude at 435. It will reach its highest point at 43 degrees. Actually comes out of shadow. Well, maybe not such a good one. So it'll be halfway over through the sky before you see it. Out of the south and reach fall to 439 out of the east-southeast. And this is KE5 ICX on your net control for tonight's Skynet. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take some final check-ins and then give a final count. If you'd like to join us or at least be counted for tonight's net, please come now with your call sign, phonetically your name, and where you're transmitting from.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony, in Dallas.
Well, there's that guy we've been looking for all evening long. Tony, NT5TM. Tony, we got you checked in. Well, good. You're going to have to tell us what you did on the next net. We were missing you. We had to make up stuff because you weren't there. But that's okay. I've got you checked in. All right, let's go ahead. Does anybody have any questions? Astronomical Q&A they want? We've got 2 minutes left. If you've got something you want to ask, now's the time. Please come to your call. All right, hearing none, we're going to go ahead and close it out. Tonight we had 27 check-ins. That includes myself. Thanks to all who checked in this evening. I hope you join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. Because on this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations and people to provide presentations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at it, contact any of the net managers or send an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussions about this net, astronomy in general, on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Till next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray Tom, and I'll be closing the net at 22:29 local time. 7-3 everyone, and enjoy discovering the universe. We will be back in about 5 minutes to discuss tonight's
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow movie come on by for that. Even if you didn't see the film, I think you'll find it an interesting discussion. So come on back in about 5 minutes. This is KE5 ICX. I'm clear for now. All right, hopefully everybody has refreshed their drinks, powdered their noses, and are ready for the next net, the final net of the evening here on this repeater, which is the Afterglow Movie Net. Yes, I'll tell you how this net began. It began when we started talking about movies, something related somehow to Skynet usually, and a movie that was science fiction oriented, that referred to the main topic or something like that. Well, as time went on, we continued to meet, and then finally we decided, let's review a movie that we can all see, and then discuss it the following week. Well, that's exactly what we started to do, and that was, I don't know, 6 years ago now, something like that. And tonight's movie is the 1985 Explorers. That was directed by Joe Dante, and I believe it was produced, it says it was produced by David Bondek and somebody else. Oh well, it doesn't matter. At any rate, it starred Ethan Hawke, River Phoenix, and Jason Preston. Music by the great maestro Jerry Goldsmith, my favorite composer, as well as one of my favorite scores from Jerry Goldsmith. In fact, I paid a premium price for the LP for this album because it's really unavailable at the time. Now I have multiple copies of the thing, including an extended version, because I'm that nerdy. So let me tell you a little bit about the movie itself and then the plot before we get started. 1985 American space fantasy film written by Eric Luke and directed by Joe Dante. Starred Ethan Hawke, River Phoenix, both in their film debut, and Jason Preston as teenage boys who build a spacecraft to explore outer space. The special effects were produced by Industrial Light Magic and makeup by Rob Bott. Rushed in production, the film was never properly finished. Dante revealed that the studio demanded he stop editing and rush for a July release, where it was overshadowed by a Live Aid concert, which was held one day after the film's release. Stiff competition from Back to the Future, which opened 9 days prior. It was a box office failure upon its release, but it has attracted a cult following with its VHS release. Here's the plot. Ben Crandall is a young teenage boy living in fictional Maryland suburb who experiences vivid dreams about flying through clouds and over a vast city-like circuit board, usually after falling asleep watching old sci-fi films. War of the Worlds is a favorite. Upon waking from the dream, he draws a diagram of the circuit board and shows the sketches to his friend, child prodigy Wolfgang Mueller. At middle school, Ben develops a crush on Lori Swenson, but is unsure whether it is mutual. The boys also befriend punkish but likable Darren Woods, with whom they share their circuit board concepts. Wolfgang builds an actual microchip based on Ben's drawings. It's amazing how you can do that with just some items at home. The chip enables the generation of electromagnetic bubble, which surrounds a predetermined area. The boys discover that the bubble is capable of moving at near limitless distances and speeds without ill effects from inertia. They construct a rudimentary spacecraft out of an abandoned tilt-a-whirl car and name it Thunder Road after Bruce Springsteen's song of the same name. After Ben receives more dreams about the circuit board, Wolfgang discovers a means of producing unlimited sustainable oxygen. This means longer flights, whereas previously they were only limited to whatever typical oxygen tank could hold. They finalize their plans to explore the galaxy in search of alien life. The boys complete liftoff despite interference from authorities, who silently wishes them well. Shortly after breaking Earth's orbit, something overrides the boys' personal computer controls. The Thunder Road is seen light years away in deep space, and is tractor beamed aboard a much larger spaceship. The boys venture out to meet their captors, Whack and Meek, two aliens whose knowledge of Earth comes almost entirely from pop culture, particularly television reruns. The young explorers hit it off with their extraterrestrial host, but the alien ship is suddenly intercepted by a larger still alien vessel. Walker urges the boys to leave. They're in the process of doing so when they're interrupted by a gigantic extraterrestrial who admonishes Walk and Neek. It is revealed that Walk and Neek are brother and sister, and the gigantic creature is their father. They've been taking his ship out for a joyride, sending the dreams to the boys in hopes of meeting humans. Transmissions of old movies that kept the extraterrestrial populace at a distance, except for the curious Walk and Neek. due to the way humans depict violence towards alien life. Walk-and-Neek's father allows the Thunder Road and his crew to depart after Walk-and-Neek give the boys a parroting gift, an amulet which, according to the extraterrestrials, is the stuff their dreams are made of. The boys make it safely back to Earth, but a malfunction results in them crashing the Thunder Road into their neighborhood lake. A week later, Ben has a dream at school in which he envisions another vast circuit board while flying through more clouds overhead. This time, thanks to Walk-and-Neek's amulet, Ben is joined in the dream by Wolfgang, Darren, and Lori. They proclaim that the circuitry is really complicated and speculate where it may take them once completed. Lori smiles at Ben while holding his hand, and they share a kiss while flying to the end. A couple of people in it you might not have noticed is Robert Picardo. You know him as the emergency medical hologram from Star Trek Voyager. Very difficult to pick him out because he plays 4 characters. He plays the Star Killer in the crappy movie that's showing at the theater. He plays Walk and Neek's father, so actually 3 characters. Yeah. Okay, he plays 3 characters. Neek is played by Leslie Rickard. There's also a quick, almost a cameo. I guess maybe this is before he became really famous, although I do remember him in earlier movies. James Cromwell plays Mr. Mueller, the father of Wolfgang. So he appears in it. You almost had to blink and you'd miss him. You blink and you would miss him, but he is in there, James Cromwell. Okay, we're ready to get started. I read you the synopsis of the story. You don't have to have seen the show, the movie, in order to participate, but if you have, it certainly helps. So we'll go ahead and get started. I will take check-ins. Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie, Explorers, from 1985? Let's go ahead and do so now.
November, Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony in Dallas. I saw the whole thing when I was a kid and saw most of it tonight.
November, Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth. I saw this movie when it came out, and I've maybe seen it a couple times since then. So I'm going to be going on some of my memories in B5F.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sarah Oscar Kilo. Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I've seen this film.
All right, I picked up 3. KB5SOK Sean in Fort Worth. He has recently seen the film. I'll take additional check-ins before I move to Echo Lake. If you'd like to join us on Afterglow tonight, we are talking about Explorers from 1985. Now please come with your call, your name, and did you see the film this evening?
KWG, Cruise in Arlington. I saw the film.
Okay, picked up KI5KWG Cruise. He did see the film. He is over in Arlington, so I'm going to put that down as well. All right, I do not have Echolink working tonight. There's some internet problems here at home. Wireless internet, for some reason, is acting up, so everything's a hard connection's working great. Everything that's wireless is not. So my Echolink stuff is wireless, and it is not working. So if you're on Echolink and you'd like to join us, I will give you extra time. Please come with your call, your name, and did you see our movie tonight, Explorers from 1985? Small group tonight. Don't forget, next week we will be in person. We'll have a watch party. We will be watching The Bride of the Monster from 1955, the Edwood Craptacular. It should be very good. As I mentioned earlier, it has industrial-grade spaghetti strainers used to bring people back to life, so it should be a real thriller. Don't forget, and check the w5st.org website. Come on out around 10:30, and we'll be watching the film on the big screen. Yes, the big screen. Maybe even in color. I think we're going to watch it in color. Somebody colored it in, thinking it would make the film better. I doubt that. At any rate, here we go. So with our small group, I'll go ahead and start with Tony. Tony, what did you think about the plot for tonight's movie? Explorers from 1985.
Well, thank you, Tom. I enjoyed the plot and in general found it very heartwarming, and I was particularly amused that I had the same problem watching this movie while Aaron and I were cooking that I did when I was 11. The last, third of the movie is just not memorable at all. They had to do something, but judging by what you and I have read online recently, it wasn't what the director intended, and it gets kind of forgettable, actually. Like, oh, other kids playing with toys. Whoopee. It was particularly enjoyable in a couple of ways to me that they may not have intended. One, I'm sure they did. When you're a kid, it's always very frustrating to be, you can't do anything until you grow up. Here, take the trash out. That just doesn't seem very important. And to be honest, I'm a grown-up. I can postpone that chore more easily than when I was 10. You don't get to do anything. You're always just, everything in school is always broken down into very small units. Practice this long division problem. You feel so constrained, and so the freedom to go out and do something is just wonderfully exciting. It's a recurring theme, and several good movies from the 80s, of course, this probably got compared to E.T. a lot, and for much the same reason. Of course, I was already playing with those, like 300,000 things in one electronic kits where they give you a diagram and you build simple things like a light that blinks if if your hand moves in front of the solar cell or something so you can detect motion. And I already knew that things in circuit diagrams had to stand for something. You could put the strangest squiggly symbol in a circuit diagram and you can add an Ankh to it and maybe the Eye of Horus. But if you didn't have the thing it stood for, what good did that do you? Just arranging wires in those shapes is not magic. So even when I was a kid, that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. The science is definitely very, very much just magic. They cast the right spell. The technology from this movie that I wanted, who needs a thing that makes unlimited oxygen? What good is that for except starting fires? We don't have a shortage of oxygen on this world. We have a surplus of other things we need less. The thing that really intrigued me wasn't so much the circuit diagrams, but people dreaming together. I thought that would be so much fun, and rewatching it, that held up really well. I still do. A technology that allowed people to share dreams. And most dreams are pretty weird and kind of incomprehensible, but maybe they wouldn't be if we were all dreaming together. I still think that, I don't know, it could be very disturbing and disjointed, but it could also be really awesome. NT5TM.
good, Tony. Thank you very much. By the way, I think everybody has noticed, and we even have some check-ins, distance check-ins. We've got some skips this evening, so don't worry about those people behind the electronic curtain, audio curtain. They're talking somewhere, probably Tulsa or something. We get Tulsa, Sugarloaf, I think, in near Houston, and one other place. But at any rate, they use the same frequency pairs that we do, different PL tones, of course. But at any rate, if you hear them, don't worry about it. You'll definitely blow them out of the sky easily. All right, next up is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, what did you think about the plot? Do you remember it? I read it, and I do that on purpose. What do you think? Does this film hold up for your expectations in this today? And what do you think about the film itself? Explorers, 1985, on KE5ICX.
KE5ICX, this is NV5F. Well, I do remember the plot, and I do appreciate you reading the plot back, because there's some details, of course, that I don't remember. One of the reasons I haven't seen this movie very much since 1985 is because, like Tony, I distinctly recall being very excited about this movie. The ads made it look fun, and it was also the same summer that there were some other pretty good movies that had come out. The Goonies had come out in June, and Back to the Future had just come out, and this was a little bit later in the summer, and I think I went and saw this one and the Goonies with my cousins both in the same summer. I was in Texas most of the summer that year and saw quite a few movies. But I do distinctly recall thinking the plot was pretty cool when it got started. I did not know electronics, but I loved science fiction, and I loved anything about space, and so I remember getting into this, and the original concept of the plot was pretty neat, and then they got to the spaceship, and it just fell apart. It was dumb, it was disjointed, it lacked it started when they got to where they met the other aliens. They were just so goofy, and I don't want to get into characters really, but I thought the end of it was just kind of inconsequential and just didn't live up to the cool setup. The setup was very neat, and the spaceship they built out of junk was very cool and makeshift, but they also made it just seem pretty neato, and so yeah, I just felt like the plot was a little bit it was just kind of almost had multiple personalities, where it was this neat sci-fi thing, and then it turned into this campy pop culture thing. And I do like the idea of the characters becoming friends with the alien kids and getting the amulet, and it sounds like, I didn't remember the specifics of the end, but it does sound like they were kind of trying to leave room for a sequel, and the idea of the circuit board becoming more complex and possibly becoming something that they could build and go on more adventures. And I like the idea of dreaming together too. My dreams tend to be kind of mundane and dreary and not very interesting, and I think if I were in my dreams with friends, it would make them a lot more fun. So I'm with Tony on that one. So I won't go deep into plot, because I think it's a pretty basic plot, but it could have been a lot more. It could have been a lot more detailed toward the end and a lot more interesting. And I do recall something about a major producer change or shift in the production that kind of rushed this out to release, and I do recall finding that out when I was a kid too, when I was a little after the movie came out. So I have some more comments about the movie later on, just kind of based on the times it came out, but I'll finish right there with the plot. So K5ICX, and then NV5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia, and thanks for your recollection as to what was going on back then when you first saw the film as well. It kind of helps put context around what were they thinking and what was going on at the time. And I think the film kind of fit in with that time frame quite well. There were also a lot of pretty bad films around that time as well, but I agree with you. I think it was a good film. At least the first two-thirds of it was good. But I'm going to save my comments. Next is Sean, KE5SOK. Sean, you recently saw the film. What did you think from KE5IC?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, oddly enough, I don't know how I missed this when it came out back in 1985, because I did, of course, go see Back to the Future that year and Goonies as well. And somehow or another, I missed this film. This was actually the first time I'd seen it, and maybe it was because of the ratings, or well, at that time too, to be quite honest, budgets. I was on quite a budget, so I probably was picking and choosing what I went and saw. But so yeah, it's kind of interesting, I guess, maybe not having that childhood tie into the film. Overall, I did like it. It has that very much definitely written for children. Some people might say sci-fi films generally are, but I don't think they all are. I think some are written for adults as well, but this one was definitely aimed at the children. I agree with everybody. I think it started out very good, actually. I liked the concept, especially growing up in that time frame. You very much, and I know I was one that wanted to be an astronaut someday. Didn't get to do that, but of course you dream about it and traveling in space, and so it definitely ties you into that. And then of course I'm sure they're playing off the success of E.T. And one of the other things I liked about this film is at least it had a positive ending. So often than not, and the actual film alludes to this at the end, that 99% of our alien movies end with destruction, and either us destroying them or them destroying us. It does seem to always fall in those groups, and like E.T. luckily had the happy ending, and this one did too, which was kind of nice. And really, in recent times, I'm not sure I remember the last movie that just had a nice, positive, happy ending with an alien interaction. So that was kind of nice. Yes, I agree. The science was pretty bogus. Being a kid, it also had those kits from Radio Shack and built many circuits, and luckily my family was very nice in letting me take things apart and try to put them back together. So I was also very familiar with circuits, and so even back then I would have also been disappointed with, they cut it down a little more realistic, at least showed a basic power supply or something, something that looked legit. But I guess if you didn't know any better, maybe that wouldn't be a problem. But yeah, I mean, I love the concept. Yeah, getting these plans. I like the fact that they did try to put a little bit of explanation into the film, explaining that this bubble, somehow or another, it did, keep you feeling the inertia, almost like a warp bubble in Star Trek, and it would protect you. And so at least they explained why they could move at such rapid rates and such speeds. We see so many movies where they just don't explain it. And even though, we aren't getting any deep science, at least they do mention it, and the kids have the intelligence to discuss it. And yeah, I agree. The oxygen thing was kind of a waste. It was just kind of a filler of why they didn't have to carry oxygen with them. But I think it was just kind of the next step of showing them getting, maybe in a more advanced technology being shared with them. A few funny parts I thought was that he was powering the whole thing with a 9-volt battery for testing. I thought that was kind of ridiculous. And then they used a car battery for the full-blown flight. So yeah, that's pretty impressive. So yeah, I'm not quite sure how he ran his computer and the circuit off of a 9-volt battery, but okay. But yeah, this was just kind of one of those feel-good movies. I agree. The first two-thirds, I really enjoyed it. And then once they got to the spaceship, I was heavily disappointed. I was so let down with the last third of it. We had characters that look like something that should be in Power Rangers, enemies, these plastic costumes. And yeah, I know we're kind of getting into characters here, but that part was just so disappointing because I was really rushed this. I think it's such a shame because this could have maybe, been one of the big classics had they ended this much better. But I do like the idea that they did bring up that, all our movies, if aliens were monitoring our airwaves as they were getting close to the planet, they might think twice about visiting us after seeing all these horrible movies. So now I thought that was cute, and I do like the idea that it was, alien kids that reached out to, kids on Earth. So I thought that was kind of funny. And then they got in trouble with the parents. But once again, I think they could have done this instead of going camping, and they could have made it a little more, realistic, and they could have still left a little bit of the humor of how they learned the language. But unfortunately, they just took it a little too far. And so yeah, really enjoyed the beginning of it. Loved the concept. Just wish it would have had a stronger ending. But all in all, this is KB9. Back to net. KB9 is okay. Back to net. Sorry.
All right, thank you, Sean. I just took the echo link up just to, of course, I'm the only guy there, so I think things are not going well on echo link. But, okay, next up is Cruz, KI5KWG. Cruz, your thoughts on our film for this evening from KE5ICX.
KI5KWG. I don't have much on this film. When I first started watching this, I went, oh yeah. It was not until the scene of the bookshelf, the little ball flying or sphere flying through leaving holes in the books that I remembered it. I had never seen the whole film, but I'd always wanted to because I remember that scene and all the way up until they were in the park and Wilhelm, I think, no, Wolfgang ended up inside of the sphere. And I was thinking, what a fun concept. And so I wanted to see this film, and then pretty much what everything Sean just said. What a disappointment. The wheels just came off of it. I started some notes. I said, good engaging premise, and or good enough. It says good enough premise, and I have in parentheses close encounters, thinking about how they don't really know where they're getting the ideas, but several people are having the same idea. And I thought, that ends up coming from the aliens wanting to meet. So that was pretty cool. Tron era graphics I have written down. And of course, it would be interesting to put together a list of all the sci-fi films that you can reference out of this one film. And it has it all: frightened cat sound and the Wilhelm scream. In one film, the frightened cat sound always cracks me up. But like we're all going to emphasize, as the wheels came off when we finally got to the climax of meeting the aliens. And what such a disappointment when I had imagined this movie to have been telling a much better story than it told and being a lot more fun than it actually was. So I think that's all I've got on the plot, or on this section anyway. KI5, KWG, back to net.
I think there's a consensus of opinion forming here. Okay, that was Crew's comments. We're at the bottom of our very short list tonight, so I'll go ahead and ask if there's anyone else who'd like to join us. Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie discussion, Explorers from 1985.
Whiskey 5, bacon, lettuce, tomato, W5BLT, Bill, Garland, yes, I saw the movie.
Very good. Bill, welcome. You get a comment now on what you think about the plot for our film for this evening from KE5ICX.
Well, I don't have anything really different than anybody else. I was so into this movie, of course. I remember War of the Worlds, both the radio show and the movie, and I was enthralled by War of the Worlds as a little kid, and even before Star Wars. And so I was excited at that reference, and yeah, 2/3 of the movie, great, and it lost me at the end. Especially being blind, I think there wasn't as much dialogue, and so it took me a little bit to figure out that the aliens were doing the cartoon voices thing, and so that was confusing at first, and then I had to go to the internet to figure out how that ended, and the dream sequence, that kind of threw me off. So yeah, from everything I read online, it was kind of rushed at the end. They wanted to get it out and try to capitalize, and the old saying, haste makes waste, I think applied here. And unfortunately, it came out weekend of Live Aid. I do remember Live Aid. I don't remember this movie coming out. But I'm not even sure that would have helped it. I think probably audiences, if it's a great movie, people recommend you go see it. And if it's a dud, well, they tell you don't spend your time on it. I don't regret watching this compared to some of the other movies that we've done. This was a great movie. But it could have been much, much better. Anyway, that's all I got. W5BLT. Back to net control.
KI5IGV.
All right, thank you, Bill, and good comments. And the station KI5IGV, I believe it is. So welcome aboard. Could I get your name and location, and what do you got for us?
Alpha November. I've been with your DX and heard you guys here. This is the Dallas from here. I'm not 100% sure. I don't have a pinpointed exact. But I'm in Buffalo, Texas. 2 hours away from Dallas. And the call here is Kilo India 5, India Golf Victor. And I guess I'm checking in. Over to you.
Okay, I think you said Ian. You had a great signal, and then it just kind of dropped into the noise, so I got KI5IGV. Welcome to the net. I'm not sure where you are exactly, but you could be anywhere based on Skip this evening, but in any case, we're glad you're here. If you're around next week, we'll be talking about another movie. Well, actually, next week is Field Day, so we will be actually having a watch party and watching our film next week, but in 2 weeks we'll be back on Saturday night talking about that film. So welcome. I'll go ahead and give my comments about the film. I agree with what everybody said. I remember this was on cable quite frequently back in the 80s. Of course, the movie came out in 1985. And I did see it in the theater originally. It was part of a double feature econo thing I used to see at the Wyandotte Theater back in the Detroit area. And I'd go see the film. Usually it was on Wednesday night. Actually, it was 2 films on Wednesday night. I'd actually walk over to the theater. It was that close to where I lived at the time. And go see the film for, I think it was $1. So you got to see two films on Wednesday evening starting at 7 o'clock and get out of there around 10:30 or something like that. And that evening was Explorers, and I don't remember what the other film was, but virtually every film that we have reviewed so far that from the 80s, I managed to see for $1 or 50 cents a movie at the Wyandotte Theater, which was a nice little theater, by the way. It was an older theater from the 40s. So all of that and a very cheap price. I like that. And walking over. You didn't have to park anywhere. It was just a couple of blocks from where I live. Okay, about the film itself. first part of it, I remember, as everybody else has said, is the setup was great. And like most films that are mysterious like this, they do have a setup. Now, you may have noticed, too, that this film started with sequences and showed sequences from two films. One of them was This Island Earth, another was War of the Worlds. Those two showed up quite prominently. And I don't remember, no, Forbidden Planet. No, it was This Island Earth. I think both of those were Paramount releases. I could be wrong, but I think they were. This Island Earth, as you may have guessed, when you look at the thing and the special components that had to be built, it was a lot like the interosseter components you needed in order to assemble the thing so that you can go talk to the aliens, be smart enough to talk to the aliens. So that was ripped right out of This Island Earth, including even some of the scenes that were reproduced in the movie. So that shouldn't come as any surprise. Now, with any story, and we know that this one got short-circuited, they want to get the film out early. Boy, I deal with that all the time with what I do. The group that I work with, we do video stuff, we do classroom training, we do a lot of distance learning, all of that, and because of bad planning on the parts of the people that I work for, which is frequent, schedules are always screwed up and very poorly defined. So we, in my group, we try very diligently to get as much done early on in the process before they arbitrarily change the end date on what we do. It just drives me nuts, and I feel like killing them, but that's just the way it is, and it sounds like that's what happened to poor Joe Dante here, the same sort of thing. So I'm not going to blame him. First part of the film definitely was a nice setup, but the second half of the film, or the second third of the film, I think somebody said, really kind of fell apart, because what are you going to do? Well, I suspect Dante had some sort of a plan. I don't know what it is, and I'm sure if I go to the internet, I'll find it. What was the original conclusion to this movie supposed to be? Or somewhere, where did it go off the rails? Or would have stayed on the rails and been a good film? Dante's good about making good stories, so I have a feeling he probably would have had a good story and a good ending. Unfortunately, he didn't get to execute it. So the ideas and the setup were great. It sounds like a kid's film, and it is, but it's an intelligent one. It doesn't treat the kids like dummies. They aren't. Adults sometimes get short-shrifted, but it's very short-lived. James Cromwell gets to play James Cromwell, like he always does, very briefly in the film. There were some corny parts. I think the part with Wolfgang wearing, was it Wolfgang? No, that's, yeah, Wolfgang. Wolfgang wearing his science coat and being able to do all the massively great things that he could do as a pseudoscientist was quite amazing. And father, of course, being able to appreciate the kid's work and have being, the kid being a chip off the old block. We see that. So I guess it's okay. That part was fine, and the setup was a lot of fun, and I thought the characters, well, we're going to get into characters here in a little bit, but overall, it moved along. The second half, or the second third of the film, where we get to the aliens and the excessively long scenes with the pop culture part, was fine for a bit, and then it just went out of control. It was like, it was another example of like watching Robin Williams. Robin Williams is very entertaining for about 3 to 5 minutes, and doing his shtick. And then after that, it starts getting old. Well, this is a Robin Williams shtick of sorts that starts getting old because it's a repeat of everything over and over again. And it's funny at first, hilarious in fact, and then it starts to get old and starts to fall on its face. And I guess that's part of the editing or the inability to finish the film with whatever they had planned. But with that being said, I've not seen this film probably in about 20 years, but I did enjoy it. Would I watch it again? Sure. It's well worth the first 2/3 of the film and watching it, and if I just decide to fall asleep or just turn the thing off, I know how the rest of it ends. All I have to do is say pop culture and aliens scared of humans. How many times have you seen that anyway? It could be a part of old films anyhow. So there you have it. All right, so let me see. I am going to go back to the top of the list. The next section has to do with characterization, casting, or acting. So we'll go ahead and start with that. Tony, what did you think of the characterization for this film from NT5M from E5ICX?
You know, given how much Aaron and I like the Goonies, I feel so guilty that I didn't realize this came out the same year. I'd like to thank everyone who mentioned that. As far as the characters, I actually have less to say here. They were all moderately interesting, which is fine. You know, when you're talking about kids, you can't give them too much of a backstory. They, you know, no Ted Stryker stuff was crashing into the, you know, because they just haven't been alive that long. They're young. You can give them a little bit of a setting and a little bit of a family situation, but that's really about all you can do. They didn't have something that happened to them 40 years ago. And the film did that reasonably well. It created kids who, you know, had some interesting family elements. You know, it could have been more interesting. There could have been, the kids could have been a little bit different from one another, more so than we saw here, but, and then interesting things happened to them. So they meant well, and I'll pat them on the shoulder gently for that, but not a whole lot to say. NT5TM.
All right, thank you, Tony. And let's see here. We'll go ahead and move to Virginia, NV5F. What did you think of characterization on our film Explorers from 1985?
Well, since I haven't seen the movie in its entirety recently, I'll have to go on memories and just kind of maybe even compare it and contrast it a little to things that were current. I also remember that I saw this movie. You were talking about remembering your Wednesday night double features. I think all the movies that I saw that summer, my sister and I spent several weeks staying here in Dallas-Fort Worth with our dad and stepmom and siblings, and then we would go every so often and spend a couple days with our cousins. And I remember seeing this and the Goonies and Back to the Future, and I think I saw them all at a theater in Arlington. I don't even think it's there anymore. It was a United Artists theater on, I think it was Bowen and I-20, and it was 8 screens. And I remember back then it was such a big deal to have a theater with that many screens. It was huge. And it was brand new, and it was this big deal to go to the movies there. And I think I saw at least a couple of those movies at that theater. It's really funny because I saw the very beginning of this movie a few months ago streaming somewhere. I guess I was just flipping around, and I started it and just wasn't in the mood for it. And it was funny because I felt like I was watching like a movie that wanted to be the Goonies, or was trying to be Stand By Me, or wished that it was, you know, some other movie. But then I think about it, and it came out after the Goonies, but it came out in the same summer, and so it was almost concurrently released with the Goonies. And you know, the actors in it were good, and they did go on to do things like Stand By Me, and I think River Phoenix's younger brother, he went by the name Leaf, I think, back then, and he turned himself into Joaquin. But back then, he was in, I think he was in Space Camp in 1986, and then I think he was in Ruskies. I think that was in 1987, and he was he was a good little actor even back then. So it's kind of cool to think about all the actors and all what they went on to do after, and how they really were a good. I mean, it was a typical cast. You had like the nerdy kid, and you had the, you know, you have sort of the more typical mainstream kid and the kind of tough kid, and the girl. There's a girl tagging along, or a little brother, you know, and it had sort of that ensemble, and I liked that. I remember just really liking the characters, and the alien characters were so corny and kooky in contrast, you know, and then their dad showing up, and he's this big, mean version of them, you know, he's kind of big and scary. I remember him being like this big silhouette, and he's just like yelling at them in some weird language, and you know, and then you realize that they're the kids, and it could have been very heartwarming, and it could have been very engaging, like E.T., which, of course, E.T. was re-released in 1985. We went and saw that at the Bowen UA-8 in 1985. They ran it again that summer, and so this was up against E.T. At the time. I just remembered that, and it's funny because I was reading about E.T. earlier today, and I remembered there was a mention of it being re-released in 85. So this movie was actually competing with Back to the Future, Goonies, and E.T., and it just had that, it fizzled out at the end, and, you know, it was kind of like, well, it was trying to be sort of like E.T., it was trying to be kind of like movies that were coming out at the same time, it was trying, with all the TV references, maybe kind of trying to be like Mork and Mindy, or Splash with Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah, which came out, I believe that came out in 82 also. Anyway, so I remember just liking the characters, and it was a typical 80s ensemble cast of kids, like, that all came from, you know, the same area but different family situations, and, you know, of course, in the 80s, they had to have kids, like, cussing as much as they possibly could. You know, they were trying to get away with them. They wanted to get that PG rating, you know, so the kids would want to see the movie because it wasn't lame, you know. So, anyway, I remember enjoying the characters, and the kid actors were great, and the alien characters could have been a little more in line with the story, and that kind of messed things up. I just think it was a little too silly. Those characters are just a little too silly. So anyway, I'll say a little more about the times on the next round. K5ICX, NV5F.
Okay, thank you, Virginia. And while you were speaking, you mentioned the multiplex theaters, and I was thinking about a theater that I remember as a kid, the first multiplex called the Colvatus Theater in Westland, Michigan. I want to talk about that because there's some things I didn't know about it, but you're going to find it quite fascinating. Actually, I was not aware of some of this. A lot of it I was, and I was impressed as a kid, but I will going to hold that towards the end. Next up is Sean, KB5SOK. Sean, what did you think of the characterization for our film? What is it? Explorers from 19... Go ahead.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, not a lot to say different in this area, because as everybody said, that yeah, this film definitely, as everybody's mentioned, it stole from a lot of other films, or maybe some films stole from it and possibly in the future. But yeah, the kids were pretty much the standard ensemble. We did get a little bit of backstory. You know, we watched a lot of movies where you don't really know anything about the characters. So at least we did learn a little bit about each character, and I think as Tony said, well, they're kids. How much backstory can they have? I think the actors did a good job with the characters. Once again, the characters, as most kids, are fearless. Sure, what could possibly go wrong climbing to the top of a tree? Or let's get into a spaceship and go into space. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, and as a kid, you have that mentality. You don't necessarily think things through. So they definitely had an adventurous side to them, and it showed their fearlessness to just go for it. yeah, I like the actors. I did like the kids. Yeah, the families, there wasn't much there, not a lot to say about them. I do feel that the officer, the helicopter officer, didn't really add a whole lot to the film. I know they kind of used him to rush them along a little quicker. But, you know, they show him, you know, at the end there before the kids took off, you know, kind of, you know, go for it, or I forget exactly what he said. I think it might have been more fun if they'd actually had him, if he'd helped them in some way to reach their dream. Yeah, that character almost seemed a little throwaway, but other than that, yeah, of course, really the only other character we had was just the aliens, and as everybody said, unfortunately, that was just kind of a letdown. You know, once again, we didn't find out really a lot about them either. Other than they were kids and the other the adult there, but yeah, so not a lot in characterization because that part of the film was somewhat simple, but it did get the idea across, I think, pretty effectively. So yeah, that's all I got for this round. Back to net, KB9SOK.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Next up, Cruz, KI5KWG. Your thoughts on characterization from KE5I6?
KI5KWG, good. I think I commented on Super 8, that film we watched a few weeks ago, that all of those kids about the same age as these had done such a good job, and pretty much that goes for this film as well. I didn't recognize but one name, and that was River Phoenix, and I don't know why I recognized the name. And the only actor that I thought I recognized of the kids was Jason Presson playing Darren Woods, the kid on the little mini bike. And I was certain that was the same actor who played John Connor on the motorcycle in the Terminator films. And it isn't. So I looked him up after watching this, and I didn't recognize any of their parts in any films they did from here on. And did find out what tragic life two of them had, dying of overdoses. So, but I don't think any of them ever really made it big. Maybe the Ethan Hawke, but I'm not sure. I didn't recognize his roles in any other films reading his list. So, yeah, I'm so glad that Sean mentioned it. Is I think he was the sheriff. I don't remember what his character's name, and I don't know the actor's name. But that was a good part. And obviously he was part of it and had those dreams as a kid, and so they were pretty much aiming at getting him involved in this, but then he didn't. And so once again, the promise of the story just never was not delivered upon. All right, so back to net, KI5KWG.
All right, thank you, Cruz, and no problem. We will continue. Let's see here, and you make a good point. The character, I'm a little slow at times to pick up on stuff like that, but yeah, it was obvious that at some point he was also had the dreams, or at least had that vision. We pass it on from one generation to another, figuratively and literally in this film. Bill, W5BLT. Bill, what'd you think of characterization for Explorers from 1985? W5BLT from KE5I6.
You know, I liked them. I think the aliens, I think everybody said it, you know, they kind of fell apart. I did think it's interesting that, you know, no matter where you grow up, what planet you grow up on, you're always trying to steal a spaceship or car and do a little joyriding. But you know, I had the typical characters, and, you know, the bully, the girl, I guess, is kind of the interest of the boy, and you know, they don't really stand out, but they weren't horrible. I did. I had something to say on the one of the characters, and I can't remember. I think they were trying to go for the feel of it, because I remember reading something that the network or the company that produced this thought that the kids, flying on the bikes from ET was reminiscent, and so that's part of the reason they wanted to produce this. So anyway, I can't really add anything on the characters. I did like the one scene where the mom was mispronouncing the kid's name. Wolfgang's mom was mispronouncing the kid's name. I thought that was kind of funny, only because it happened to me as a kid. Anyway, W5BLT, back to net control.
All right, thank you, Bill. Let's see, I don't know if he's still out there, KI5IGV. He may have faded into the ether, but you got anything for us from KE5ICX? All right, I thought maybe his connection might be a little tenuous, but that's fine. I thought the kids were played fairly well. There was a little bit of the silliness that goes along with it. I cringe a little bit whenever they do the mini adults. In this case, Wolfgang playing the scientist, and the and a mini version, mini me of his father. While it's okay, and yeah, there's some of that goes on, I just thought that the white coat with the big pockets was a bit much, and the glasses overarching. Geez, I'm just like my dad. I'm just a little miniature version of him. That has a tendency to be a little too silly for me. I think the fact that they are nerds to begin with is relatable to just about everybody on this net. And whoever's listening, because we were kind of nerdish growing up, most of us. So we can relate to that part of it. I think maybe, I don't know, there wasn't any conflict really at school, except that, they fall asleep or get distracted, which is fine. I suppose you could have gone for the okie dokie on the first part, but the first part of the film was fine anyhow, so why mess with that? So other than that, with them acting like kids and trying to build this thing up, where the heck they got their tilt-a-whirl, I don't know. I would find that difficult even as an adult to find one of those things. And in this day and age, maybe not back then, those things would go for a pretty penny because people would want them as a interesting aside, something to buy and have, I suppose. I don't know, but I digress on my conversation. Very engaging. Yeah, I was sorry to hear that a couple of them met early ends because of drug overdoses, which is really sad. When you read those stories, like the River Phoenix story about what happened, being a child star is just tough enough because you're growing up, you're in your formative years, and you get pushed around by big biz and pushy parents and all sorts of things that put you in very bad situations. And you have access to things you probably shouldn't have that can, in this case, kill you. That's the sad part. I don't want to dwell on that because it's kind of a downer. But as far as the acting, as far as how the kids interacted, I thought it was quite good. I enjoyed that quite a bit, and it featured them. They were featured throughout the film until we got to the Robert Picardo thing with the aliens, which was annoying and distracting at the same time. But, again, I think this film in and of itself, especially the characterization, would have done even better had it had a better conclusion, a better structured storyline towards the end would have been a big help. Alrighty, 11:36. We've got time for a third round. This one will be, of course, anything you want it to be. You can talk about special effects, talk about music, talk about anything you may not have covered before or have thought of since the last round. So we will start with Tony, NT5TM. Tony, what do you got on those type of categories from KE5ICX?
Well, thank you, Tom. I don't think I enjoyed the music as much as you did. I never went out and tried to find the soundtrack, but certainly the music supported the movie. One thing that I noticed was that, so often, this is one of those movies where the lighting is very much to create a mood, and if you pay careful attention to it, it makes no sense at all. Why is there a yellow light shining up on that character's face and a blue light shining in from the right side? Where's that even coming from? But when you're just watching it, it works. It just has a very artificial lighting design, and a lot you don't react to it. It definitely supports the mood. So, good music, although again, I never tracked down the soundtrack. I think you completely win the award for that. The lighting was supportive, and only on second watching was like, where did that light even come from? And yeah, as I did have to appreciate as a ham, their great use of walkie-talkies. Parents control the phones, but it's always great for kids to have a way of talking to each other that parents don't control. And also as a ham, I just loved the improvisational nature of their spacecraft. All the things we kludged together, they kludged something to, hey, let's build this onto this, and part of it's a trash can, a TV screen. Good for them. NT5TM.
Oh, good, Tony. The ham nerd factor, it comes out here. Even with the walkie, I like that. Very good. Virginia, NV5F, your thoughts on anything you want, special effects, music, something you hadn't mentioned before. I think you were talking about sort of the culture stuff, pop culture. You got it. You have the floor. Go ahead from KE5ICX.
Okay, well, yeah, I have a few things about just this and that, just memories that I have. One of my funniest memories about this movie is that at the time that I saw it that summer, I had just seen the movie 2010 at the end of 1984, and I'd seen it several times, and I was very obsessed with it. I was a kid, I was a preteen, and I was very much a nerd, and I was obsessed with anything to do with 2001 or 2010. So that summer I was reading every Arthur C. Clarke book I could get my hands on. I had a stack of Arthur C. Clarke books about a foot and a half high, and so my penchant for science fiction had grown very quickly, and my taste was already for feasible science fiction because of Arthur C. Clarke. So I really liked the idea of them, to set up the world at the beginning of this story with the dream and the circuit board, and even though the circuit board wasn't accurate, but just the idea of, they're using some kind of alien technology to build this, bubble, and then I remember the ambiguity when they made their spaceship was so kooky. I wanted it to be way more, realistic as to it having, some kind of practicality and functionality, but I did like that they stuck a little space shuttle on the front of it, because I was obsessed with anything to do with the space shuttle or the space program or NASA or anything like that, so I did like that. And I recently saw on Facebook, I'm in all these replica prop building groups and see a bunch of those posts on Facebook, and there are fans of this movie, and there are fans who have reproduced the Tilt-A-Whirl craft, the Thunder Road. I actually saw that recently, and I was like, oh man, somebody rebuilt that, so every movie does have its hardcore fans. But the other funny memory I have of this is that I they used to make, the Starlog publishers used to make these one-off movie magazines, and they would make a magazine for a whole movie where, you know, it would just be the whole magazine would be everything about that movie and how it was made. And I saw the magazine for this movie in the store, and I saw on the back of the magazine you could cut out one of those paper order blanks and order any number of other movie magazines that Starlog had also published, and one of the movie magazines you could get was 2010. And so the only way I knew to order the 2010 magazine was to buy the Explorers magazine so that I could get the order blank from the back. And I immediately ordered the 2010 magazine and wore it out. I read it so much. So I remember having the Explorers magazine so that I could get the 2010 magazine. And, you know, so those are kind of good memories. And I do remember even at that age, my taste for science fiction had become very quickly, you know, what I thought was pretty sophisticated. But I still loved, you know, good stories about kids, and I did enjoy the movies that came after this one. And I think the main thing that kept me from going back to it was that the disappointment at the end of it was so distinct and so memorable that I was just, even as a 12, 13-year-old, I was just like, oh, that movie's dumb, you know? So maybe I should have given it another chance or just enjoyed it for what it was, but I do have some very specific memories associated with it. I don't recall the soundtrack music, but I do believe that a lot of the music in movies was often better than the movie, and so I totally understand why you tracked down the soundtrack for this, and I will probably need to now go find it online somewhere and give it a listen, and because I think good movie music is hard to find now. So that's all I have to say. K5ICX in the net, NV5F.
Very good. Thank you, Virginia. Thanks for your comments, too. Yeah, well, being a fan of Arthur C. Clarke, a fanatical fan of Arthur C. Clarke, I can fully relate with you about that. And we've done a review. Maybe we should go back and do 2010 again sometime. Because 2001, 2010, they're different films completely. So it's kind of, you know, and they can stand on their own merit, even though one's a sequel. I was fine with both for completely different reasons, which is kind of cool. We did back-to-back a few years back, but maybe we need time to do that again. Both films are definitely worth a rewatch. Let's see. Let's go to Sean, KV5SOK. Sean, what did you think of anything, whatever you want to talk about? Special effects, music, something you missed last time around, anything you want, impressions of the film, childhood, you name it. You can say whatever you want. KE5ICX.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, well, I agree with everybody. You know what's been said so far. You know, probably as far as special effects go, you know, it was pretty basic. You know, the bubble was pretty neat, and but yeah, the spaceship was by far my favorite. Yeah, typically I agree. I would prefer my spaceship to look realistic, but being that the bubble is what was protecting them and not the ship itself, it kind of made sense. And I thought it was just kind of a fun thing where they at least did try to put something together that kind of, you know, it brings me back to my childhood as well, just because my grandparents had a farm and a lot of his grandkids, when we go visit or spend a week there with them in the summertime, we would take a lot of the junk laying around and build silly things, trying to mimic whether it was a spaceship or a vehicle or whatever it was we were playing and dreaming about at the time. We used to love to play with the junk and try to put it together and just make silly stuff. So yeah, that's, you know, I can totally relate to that. It was just kind of fun, even though, yeah, of course it was kind of ridiculous, but that was what was kind of cool about it. And so yeah, So yeah, that was probably the best special effect. Really, was just making it a ship, because after all, it looked better than the real spaceship when they got into space. So that ridiculous thing that they just made no sense at all whatsoever. So yeah, the music was decent. I agree, and I do agree with the comment that was made about today's movies just don't really put much effort into that. A lot of the old movies, yes, very much enjoyed a lot of the music. I think today a lot of the just video games got better music than actual, movies themselves. I really can't think of the last time that I've actually gone out and seeked an actual, the theme or something from a modern movie. It's most of the stuff's from back in the, it's just one of those films that you just had to, it was just for fun. You couldn't take it too seriously, but it did remind you of, those kind of dreams. And yeah, the ending was a shame, because it was just one of those films that was just, it was just meant to be fun, and it was. But just, man, really wish that ending had been better. This could have been one of the big ones. And I still don't know how in the world I missed this thing back in the 80s, because anything science fiction, I was in the same boat. I went and saw it, wanted to read it, wanted to watch it, wanted to see it. So I don't know how in the world I missed this thing. There must have been something weird for some reason. But I'm glad you at least brought it on the list. It was fun to see. And so I still enjoyed it, even though the ending was not what I had hoped. But so I agree. We should also try to do the 2000 stuff as well, because that was before I joined the group. And I think I've been with you guys now for at least 2 years, so it must have been some time back. Anyway, that's all I got. Enjoyed it as always. Looking forward to next couple weeks. Back to net. This is KB9SLK.
All right, thank you, Sean. Next up is Cruz, KI5KWG. Your final thoughts, Cruz?
KI5KWG. Trying to stay awake here. In fact, I had set my alarm during Skynet because I had a feeling I was going to fall asleep during it, and I did. And the alarm went off, and it interrupted a dream I was having, and I don't remember the dream, but I'm always enjoying them. They're always great adventures. But I had a soundtrack going on when my alarm went off, and it was from the gunfight scene in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the final scene. And there is a beautiful trumpet solo in there that just builds and builds, and it's just excellent. And it's not Ecstasy of Gold. I don't know what the name of the song is, and the gunfight part. And but that was actually what was playing in my head when my alarm went off. So imagine my disappointment when I had to give that. But now that was great music. The music in this film was actually pretty good. I don't usually notice it, and I kind of don't want to be noticing the soundtrack so much. There's some exceptions to that, Quentin Tarantino films. But I did notice, in a good way, several times that the music was really quite well done, and that I actually was kind of enjoying that aspect of this film. So hats off. I don't hand out compliments on this section very often, but it was due this time. KI5, KWG, back to net.
All right, thank you, Cruz. And yes, Ennio Morricone, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and the Tarantino films usually have music from Ennio Morricone that he has tracked. So that's probably why you like it. I'm a huge fan of Morricone's music through the years. I could go on and on. I won't, but really good stuff. Next up is W5BLT. Bill, what do you got for a final parting shot from KE5ICX?
A couple things that came up in my memories. I remember soundtracks being such a big deal on films. Even, like we'd go out and get, I know it's not a science fiction movie, but we'd go out and get the Rocky soundtrack, or, you had the, was it Flashdance? You had all those. You had Star Wars. You had Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You had all these movies, E.T., all of them had soundtracks. I can remember my mom, whenever there were these movies, especially science fiction stuff, she would go out and get the albums and play them on a big stereo that we had, and you could hear it all over the house. But also NPR would have different soundtrack things that they would play. I don't know if it was weekly or daily, but and I remember one was a science fiction. I think it was a week thing, so maybe it was album from each movie. So I remember having her record that for me while I was at school. The other thing that I remember is a friend and I, and this kind of why I liked this film in the beginning, and I didn't know about the tilt-a-whirl thing, how they were building the spaceship, because I don't know if that was explained in there verbally. Maybe it was visual. But anyway, we were going to take a school bus. I don't know where we're going to get this stuff, but we were going to take a school bus and fashion a new frame around it and, make sure it's aerodynamic and put rocket fins on it and things like that, and put tiles on it so we wouldn't burn up and go to Mars. We had plans for terraforming and how much supplies it would take and what kind of seeds we'd need and hydroponics, and it got really involved. And, we got older, but that was kind of fun, and so this movie brought some of those memories back to me. So it was kind of laughable. I wish I still had all the notes and tape recordings we did as we went back and forth and discussed all this. It would have been fun to go back and read that stuff. Anyway, that's all I got. W5PLT. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, well, here's my opportunity. First off, yes, I love motion picture music, and I just happened to find this one particularly good because Jerry Goldsmith, he's gone now, but he was one of my favorite composers, and he continues to be, and I discovered new stuff he did. He's very prolific. He wrote for television and motion picture. One thing that I thought was, and I remember particularly the first film that I went out and bought my first album, and it had to be a soundtrack. It was for Patton from 1970, which I also saw, and this fits in perfectly with, we're talking about theaters. I saw it at the Borealis Theater, which I'm going to tell you about here in just a minute. But first, let me tell you about the music. I really like the music to this film. I don't know why exactly. It's very hopeful. It's very upbeat. During the build section with the tilt-a-whirl making the spaceship, music slowly builds and builds until it just soars and takes off along with the whole thing. I like it. I have that on my playlist when I go running, so it's in there for a reason, and it's because it's very inspirational. Especially it works on its own. So I like that very much. There's also another thing that I like about Jerry Goldsmith films. You'll find this prevalent also in Star Trek motion picture. He uses devices, non-musical things, in his scores. And in this score, if you listen at the end of the credits, or during the sequence when the Robert Picardo, Meek, goes walking to meet with what was her name? His sister. There's some music playing, kind of a walking type thing, and you'll hear a squeak toy in there. Somebody plays a squeak toy in it to the final credits, and it's a squeak toy. Squeak, 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 and it's done to the tone of to the beat of the music. So I like that very much. Now, I was going to tell you about Borealis. Now, I hope I didn't lose it. Borealis Theater was in Westland, Michigan, and the Westland was just becoming sort of a town. It was a rural area for many, many years. It later on got the very unromantic name of Wasteland, mainly because the buildings that were built during the 60s and 70s were just boxes. And so was the Borealis Theater, which was a two-story theater that looked like an office building. And it was called Constellations because it had on the inside, you walked in and it had everything that looked like it was from Rome. So it had this ornate, maybe ostentatious look to it with chairs with gold leaf and red fabric and things like that. It just looked really kind of over the top. It had a restaurant in it and a bar. So this is in the early 60s or mid 60s. It came out. It opened in 1966, and it was a multiplex. So there were 3 theaters, and then they made it 4. And I remember quite distinctly going to see Pat, and then right next door was Kelly's Heroes, which was also showing at that same time. So yeah, my time frame is correct. Now, one of the things I did not know is that there is a drive-in theater right next door that's owned by the same people. So if you wanted to, while you're sitting at the bar, drinking a drink, there were headphones. And you could put the headphones on and look out the window and watch whatever the movie was on the big screen outside. So you got a free movie while you were having a cocktail or eating. One of the more bizarro things. So look up Constellations Theater, Westland, and you'll see there's not a lot of pictures of it. It was torn down a few years back. But it was very unusual, but ahead of its time in a way, because now we have movies with dinner and drinks and all of that, multiplexes. But Constellations, at least in the Detroit area, is the first to do something like that. Finally, special effects on this film. Yes, the kludging and building the tilted whirl and all that was just fine. I enjoyed the heck out of that. It kind of fit in a lot of ways, and it has an artistic flair to it that would seem like something that kids would do, or special effects people that were kind of stuck in their childhood. I'm sure they had a blast getting this thing built up to create what they did. All the little bits and pieces were pretty cool. So even though this was not the greatest film of all time, it wasn't the worst, and certainly not the worst that we've seen in the past. And I have watched it on a number of occasions. Now, it's been a while. I probably haven't watched this film in close to 20 years, even though I actually heard the soundtrack yet again just yesterday. When was it? Friday, I think it was. I was listening to it. So it's on my playlist. I hear it all the time, along with a lot of other stuff that I listen to. But it is in there. Okay. Anyone have any final other comments they want to bring, or anybody want to check in and make any comments that hasn't done so already? Please come in.
November 5 Sierra, Quebec Alpha.
Ron, you're night owling tonight. It's good to hear from you. N5SQA, got anything for us this evening?
Just a hearty good evening, and I'm happy that I got here before you closed down, and I just came by to say hello like I always do. N5SQA.
All right, well, it's good to know somebody's out there listening, and you're that guy. Maybe there's probably nobody else listening, so you can tell us all your secrets if you want. Nobody's paying any attention.
The building.
Okay, well, very good. Now, next week, we will not have over the air Annette. This is the 1 week out of the year that we do not. It'll be field day, and we will have a watch party of The Monster's Bride, I think it's called. Go to the website here and tell you exactly where we'll be. Come on by. We'll start the movie at 10:30, and we'll be watching The Monster's Bride, which is the Ed Wood film. Bride of the Monster, I think it's called, from 1955. We'll be watching it on the big screen, in quotes, and it will be in color, even though the film wasn't filmed in color. I think Bill has a color copy of it, so it'll make it all that much better in color, or not. And then we'll talk about the film on July 1st, following week. I have updated the list for films over on the Afterglow Movie site on Facebook. That's Afterglow Movie in 2 words. So check it out there. I've got some interesting films coming up. Some good ones, some maybe not so good ones. If you want to change that, no problem. You're not going to hurt my feelings. You got something out there that you think that we should see and we can watch it without spending a fortune, that would be nice. Just send me a note or a reminder. Sometimes people do this and send me a note and then I promptly forget because it's 12 o'clock at night, so I sometimes don't remember what it is. So with that, I'm going to say good night, bye-bye, and bye-bonds. I'm going to go watch Lost in Space, 3rd season episode. I'm not sure which one it is, but I'm sure it's a really good one. They always are. So see you next time. This is KE5ICX. I'm clear. Bye-bye.
Net control, great net tonight. KI5, see you away.
He stayed awake and kept up with us. It's hard to believe, but he does it. NT 5 p.m. Good.
The secret is taking 2 naps totaling 3 hours, which is exactly what I did. 2 naps totaling 3 hours, so I'm awake. Don't count on that every week. That won't happen. Oh, tonight's episode is 2 Weeks in Space with Fritz Feld playing Mr. Zomdish, the guy who ran the intergalactic department store, now turned travel agent. I can't make this stuff up. If you don't believe me, go watch Me TV. It's there in color. See ya. KU5I.
Brian just got an email, I guess, from Vegas.